Hey guys, wanted to show you the calculator app that we will be developing in this tutorial. So this is an advanced calculator. We have our number keys, our operations, and also our trig functions. So though this app looks very simple, there's a lot of stuff going on in the back end to make sure that we are getting the right solution and making sure the app works. So there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff in this tutorial, so I'm excited for you guys to get your hands on it and get started learning some ways that you can master Xamarin yourself. So okay, bye. Hey guys, so we're going to get started by creating a new project. So we're going to go under multi-platform, and then we're going to select Blink Native App. And then we're going to write the name, which is calculator app. You could choose whatever location you want by browsing. I am going to put this in a different folder. And we might as well just check use Git for version control. And there we have it. So we have our Droid and iOS project file, and let's get started. So guys, to get started, we're going to set up this project, and the first thing that we need to do is add components to our Android application. So inside the Droid, we're going to go to components, and we're going to right click this, and we're going to click get more components. So it's going to load the component store, and it already had my query, which was support, because we're going to use support libraries. So we're going to need the Android support design library. So go ahead and add that to the app. And then we're going to just get more components again. And support is still searched. And we're going to add a recycler view. And you just agree to the terms and service. So I'm adding that. So up here, it's just letting me know that it's saving and the project has been saved. Okay guys, we're gonna get started by opening up our main activity file. We're gonna add a support library. This was added through the get more components. We're going to change this activity to app compact activity. So since it's an app compact activity, we're going to add a theme here. We don't have a theme yet, so we're going to need to create one. So under the values folder, if there's not already a styles folder, then we're going to create one. So we're going to go under XML. We're going to add a new XML file. And we're going to create a new resources. We're going to close this. And we're going to add a theme. So we're going to add style. Calculator theme. We're going to set the parent. Whoops. We're going to set the parent to theme. app compact light no action bar. And we're gonna close this. And we're gonna save this file. And we're gonna go back to our main activity. We're gonna add our theme. So since it's a style, we're just gonna reference the name that we created. Calculator theme. And we're gonna remove these since that's not necessary. And we're gonna save. Okay, to make sure that everything we did was successful, we are going to build our calculator app.join. And you may get some warnings as long as there's no errors and everything's up to par. But before each module, you will be given an updated piece of the code. So make sure you download that if you're having errors or anything. We are going to create the calculator fragment, which will be the main view of our application. So we're gonna right click this, the calculator app.join folder, and we're gonna add a new file. So we're just gonna click Android and fragment, and we're just gonna type calculator here. Okay. So one of the changes we're gonna make is we're gonna be using, so wherever it says fragment, we're gonna be using the Android support.v4 app fragment instead. This works inside our app compact activity. So when we do fragment transitions. And as you know, this is from our get components when we added those libraries. So now this fragment is now a Android support v4. So now that we have this created, inside of here, we're gonna need to return our own view, which is stated here. So we're gonna have to create a layout for our fragment. Okay, so we are going to create the layout for the calculator fragment now. So we're gonna go down to layout. We're gonna right click this, click new file, and then under Android, we're gonna click layout, and we're gonna name this calculator layout. So we're gonna click source, and we're gonna edit this file right here. So we're gonna add padding to the top, 10 dp, and we're gonna add a weight sum and set that to 100. So this weight sum allows us to divvy up whatever views are inside it by setting a weight to that view. We are going to insert 3 text views, one for the angle, whether if it's in degrees or radians, another one for the input, and another one for the output. Okay, so we're gonna add our views into the linear layout by removing this symbol, adding a greater than symbol, and clicking enter for that linear layout. So now we could add views into the space. So the first view that we are adding is a text view. And we're going to set that to angle text view. And then we're going to set the text. Make sure it's Android text. Set that to rad to start. And we're going to set the weight of this view. We're going to set that to 10. And the left padding, we're going to set that to 10 dp. And we're going to set the height of the layout. And since we have a weight sum, we're going to set this to 0, since the height will be decided by the amount of weight that we give it. And we have the width here, layout width. And we're going to set that to match parent. And we're going to create a font. We're going to set the font family to sans serif. Dash light. And we're going to set the text size to 15 dp. And we're going to set the text style to bold. So to create the rest of the views, we are going to copy and paste this view that we created. Format that. We're going to change the ID to input text view. We're going to remove the text. We're going to change this weight to 15. We're going to change this padding left to a padding right. And we are going to set that to 15 dp. And the layout height will remain 0 dp, and the width will match the parent, and the font family will be the same. And this text size will be 50. And we will remove this text style. So we will create the output text view. So we will create the output text view here. We're going to remove this Android text. We're going to set this weight to 12. We're going to change this padding left to a padding right. We're going to set that padding to 15 dp. We're going to keep the layout height at 0 dp. Our width, we're going to match parent. We're going to keep the same font family, and we're going to change this text size to 30 dp. And we're going to remove this text style. One last thing that we need to do for our input and output text view is add a gravity so it lines up on the right side of the screen. And we just have to add that here and in this view as well. Now that we created the layout, we could return the layout here. So pretty much we just have to uncomment that out, and we're gonna write in our calculator layout. And now that is returning the layout we just created. So we want to be able to manage the angle text view, the input text view, and the output text view. So let's create fields for that. Now that we created those views, we are gonna get the view from the onView created. So we're gonna type override, and it should auto-complete this for us. And there we are. So now we're gonna set the angle text view. So we're gonna use that view, and that view is from our onCreate view that we are returning, and we're gonna find view by ID, We're gonna set the parameter that we're looking for a text view. And we're gonna look for the ID angle text view. And our output text view. And so now we have all these views set, and just to make sure that our view is showing our text, we could put some sample text. So I'm gonna put 5 times 5, and for our output text view, and you could put anything you want in here. This is just to make sure that our views are working and that it's lined up properly. Before we can set our main activity to our calculator fragment, we are going to need to edit the main layout to be able to take in a fragment view, as we are going to use a support fragment manager to hold this view. So we're going to go into layout. We're going to create a new file. We're going to select layout, and we are going to call this fragment layout. And we're going to click on source. We are going to add a frame layout. So this is just going to act as our holder for our fragment view. We're going to set the width to match the parent, and we're going to set the height to match parent. And we are going to close this view. Now that we created our fragment layout, we're going to include this into our main layout. So we're going to go down to layout, open up main, click source, and include layout. So now that we have that included, we're gonna go to main activity and begin a transaction, adding our calculator fragment. So we need the resource ID of our fragment view, and that's not showing up, but it will once we build. And we need a calculator fragment. And this is the reason why we set that to a v4 app fragment. And we're going to commit. So this should, right when this app opens, it's going to open up our calculator fragment inside the main activity. So now we're going to run the app and make sure everything is coming out how we want it to run. So we're going to just click this play button, and it may take a while to build everything and run it. And also up here I have my simulator set to run, but you also could select your device if you have that plugged in, and you just have to click here, and here's where you could choose between running debug or release. But since we're just testing, debug is fine for now, especially since we will be able to enter breakpoints to test our code and see any type of errors that are going on through that. So here is our Android app. As you can see, we have our test input in here and our output here, and we have our angle set. So that looks good to me. So let's continue on with the app. The first thing we're going to need to do before we create our views for our buttons, for our numeric buttons, our operator buttons, our advanced buttons, we are going to need to create a class that contains all the text we need for those. So we're going to get started on that now. So we're just going to remove this my class file since we don't need it. We're going to create a new folder. And we're going to name this buttons text. And we're going to add a new file. We're going to have it be an empty class, and we're going to name it numeric button text. So we're going to make this into a static class. And we don't need this constructor. And we're just going to add all the buttons we will need on our number pad for our calculator. So we're only going to need numbers 0 through 9. And we're going to need a decimal. So this Unicode escape sequence is going to be a \U2212. So that's a minus sign. And that divide symbol is going to be a \U00 capital F7. And for multiply, it's going to be a \U00 capital D7. The last button text file we're going to need to create is our advanced button text. So we're going to add a new file. This is going to be an empty class, and we're going to name this advanced button text. We're going to remove this constructor. So we're going to make this into a static class. Time for us to finish up our advanced button text and add all the constant strings we're going to need. Now it's time for us to add our special characters and our inverse characters. And to do this, we're going to need Unicode again. So let's get started. So inverse sign has a exponent of -1 after it. So we're just going to type out sign, and we're going to use the Unicode escape sequence \U 20 capital B, and we're going to follow that by a 1. That's going to be a minus sign, and we're going to follow it by 1, so that's going to be a \U 00 B9. And we're going to need to do this for our inverse cosine and inverse tan. I'm just going to copy and paste it in, and inverse tan. And Control V. Now it's time for our inverse ln, which is an e with an exponent of x. And that's going to be \U 02 capital E3. And we're going to need a inverse log, which is a 10 with an exponent of x. So that's going to be \U 02 capital E3. Now we're going to need our pi. And this is equal to \U 03 capital C0. And our square root, which is \U 221 capital A. And we're going to need a squared superscript. And the reason why we need this is because when the user inputs this into the calculator, we're not going to input the whole button that they press, which is going to be x to the power 2. So we're going to need a way to identify that the user is looking to square their input. And this is a \U 00 capital B2. And we're going to need our squared button, which is an X with the escape sequence of \U 00 B2. Now that we have all our Unicode escape sequences in, now we could clean up this code. So this could be simplified into just adding a plus sign and our squared superscript. And we could also do this here as well with the inverse ln and inverse log. So we're going to name this constant string x exponent. We're going to set it equal to that escape sequence here. And we also could just use e plus and we also could do this here as well. So we're going to name this, we're going to name it a constant string, keep it private, and we're going to name this inverse exponent. We're going to set it equal to this escape sequence. And we're going to just sign plus inverse exponent. And we could just do this throughout. And that's one way we could clean up our code. Now that we created all the button text we're going to need for our Android application, it's time to create the views that we're going to need to display it. So we're going to open up this Android folder. We're going to add a new folder. We're going to name this views. And we're going to create an abstract class called calculator buttons layout. So we are going to create this as an Android view. And we're going to change this into view group. We're going to implement the abstract class. And we're going to change this to abstract. And since we are making this into an abstract class, we're going to change all the public into protected. And the first thing we're going to do is add all the overrides that we're going to need to do for this file. So I'm going to move this up here. So now we're going to add all the overrides we're going to need for our view group. So we're going to need a generate layout params. We're going to need both overrides of that, one that takes a layout params and one that takes a attribute set. And we're going to also need to override generate default layout params and check layout params, which takes in a layout params. So we're just going to type out override and have it fill in, autofill what we need. So override should delay child's press state, override generate default layout params, and override layout params, and override
layout params. And so that's all the overrides we're going to need for this view group. So now we're going to complete the on layout. We're going to need the row count and column count from any class that implements this abstract class. So we're going to add in a row count. And column count. And we're going to need to set the measurements of the children of this view. So we're going to need a method to do this. So set child view measurements. And we're gonna get the column width. We're gonna take in the parameters, which is R minus, which stands for right, minus left, minus padding left, minus padding right. And we're going to divide that by the column count. And we're going to get the row height. And this is going to be bottom minus top minus padding top minus padding bottom. And we're going to divide that by the row count. And we're gonna pass this into set child view measurements, column width, and row height. So in our set child view measurements, we're gonna need to set the child view measure, and we're gonna have to lay out the child view. So let's create this method that we're gonna need, which is set child view measure, and this is going to take in a child view, and the child width and the child height. We are going to, for our child view measurements, we're going to need a Boolean, which lets us know if it's right to left, and that's going to take in the layout direction. That's going to take the layout direction and see if it's equal to Android views layout direction, right to left. And we're also going to need the row index and the column index. And we're going to process all the child views inside a for loop. And we're going to take in the child index. We're going to make sure the child index is less than the child count. And we are going to pre-increment the child index each iteration. And so while we're here, let's finish up our set child view measure. So this is going to be just checking if the child view's width does not equal the child's view measured width, because then there's no reason to change it, to update it. and child height. And we're gonna call child view. We're gonna get the view and call measure. And we're gonna use measure spec. And we're gonna make a measure spec. And we're gonna take the child width, and we're gonna set the mode to exactly. And we're gonna do this as well for its height. And we're gonna just implement the height, and we're gonna set that to exactly as well. To set the measure, we're gonna need the child's width and the child's height. And to lay out the view, we're gonna need the child left, the child top, and the child right, and the child bottom. So we're gonna need to do this within the for loop. So let's get started. So first thing we're gonna do is get the child view. We're just gonna call the method get child at child index. And we're gonna make sure that the child view visibility isn't gone. As long as it's not gone, we could run what we need to in this loop. So we're gonna get the layout parameters from the child view. And we're gonna get the child top, which is gonna be padding top plus the top margin plus the row index times the row height. And the child bottom is going to equal the child top minus the top margin minus the bottom margin plus the row height. Now we're going to get the column offset, and then we're going to use our right to left Boolean to decipher which way we're counting, which way we're laying out the child views. So if it is right to left, we're going to use our column count -1 minus column index. And if it's not right to left, then we're just gonna pass in our column index, and we're gonna just multiply that by column width. And we're gonna get our child left, which is our padding left, plus our layout parameters left margin, plus our column offset. And our child right is equal to our child left minus our layout parameter, our child views parameters left margin minus our right margin from the child parameters and our column width. So we're going to set in our child width, which is equal to our child right minus our child left And we're going to set our child height, which is equal to our child bottom minus our child top. And we're going to set our child view measure, which is going to take in our child view, our child width, and our child height. And we're going to lay out our view with a child left, child top, and our child right, and our child bottom. And now we're going to increment our row index, which is our row index plus our column index plus 1 divided by our column count modulus row count, and column index is equal to our column index plus 1 modulus column count. And let me fix this error here. For our calculator buttons layout to have child views in it, we're going to need a way to hold that collection. So we're going to need to create a view holder for our calculator button views. So we're going to create a new file. We're going to have this be a empty class. We're going to call this calculator button view holder. Actually, let's make this view. And we're going to just take out all of these constructors here. And we're going to take that out. But we're going to have a public field, which is a button. And we're going to call that calculator button. It can only be set privately. And let's make our constructor. And this is going to take in the button and the text for the button. So our calculator button is going to equal to the button passed in. And our calculator button dot text is going to equal to whatever text is necessary. And we're going to handle the calculator buttons click event in this method, in this class. So we're going to call that calculator buttons click. And so far we're just going to be able to get the input, which is going to be able to get its text. And we could just make this into a static method as well. And that's it for now for our calculator buttons view holder. So now that we create our calculator button view holder, let's create a way to get our button view holders from any class that is implementing this calculator buttons layout. So calculator button view holder, and this is going to be our calculator buttons. So we're going to create a method to add our child views. And this is just going to be a for each loop. We're going to take in each button view holder inside calculator buttons, and we're going to add the view. And we're going to add in the calculator button, and we're going to add this into our initialize method. And to make it easier for our classes that are going to be implementing our calculator buttons layout, let's create a protected method to help initialize our calculator button view holders. We're going to call it initialize calculator buttons. And we're just going to take in the buttons resource, which is going to be a int, which is going to be the buttons layout resource. Resource. And we're going to take in a string of buttons text. And we're going to inflate the view. So we're going to need layout inflator. We're going to take it from our context. Yep. And we're going to create a new list of calculator buttons view holders. And this is going to be a new list. And we're gonna for each through the text of the buttons. So we are going to for each through the text of the buttons. So we're going to inflate each button. And take in the buttons resource. And we're going to set the root to null. And we're going to convert this to a button by using the as. And we're going to add it to our list. And we're going to input the button and the button text. And we're going to return this calculator buttons view holder. What's up, guys? So we're going to be handling the layout that we need for our buttons for our calculator. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is add the colors that we're going to need for the background of our numeric, advanced, and operator buttons. We're also going to need the text color for the buttons, and we're going to need the ripple color for these buttons. So let's get started doing this. So we're going to open up resources and values, and we're going to add a new XML file, which is going to be under XML, and we're going to call this colors. And so we're gonna create a resources tag. And I'm just gonna close that up with a closing tag. And we're gonna start adding in colors. So we just have to name it color, and we just have to set its name. So we're gonna get started with the background colors. So this is gonna be numeric buttons background. And we're gonna set this color to, to set a color, we have to put in the hashtag and the hexadecimal for this color. So we're gonna set that to 43, 43, 43. And we're gonna close this tag. And we're gonna also do the operator and the advanced color as well. And this color is going to be 63, 63, 63. And we're going to do the advanced. And we're gonna, this is 1D E9 B6, and make sure all the letters are capitalized. And this is supposed to be a 9 here. And I also gotta fix this here. Make that and change this plus sign into an equal sign. Hopefully you guys caught that. And now we're gonna need the text color. So the only text color that's gonna be a different color is the advanced keys. So we're gonna just do color name, set that equal to button text color. And if you guys feel like customizing this and putting your own colors, this is where you would do this at. And we're gonna close this tag with color. And we're gonna do advanced. This one's gonna be a little different. So this is gonna be 9-1. Followed by 6 zeros. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're gonna close this out. So that's it for the text colors. And for our buttons, when they're clicked, it's gonna have to have a certain color for the ripple. So let's set that as well. Call this button ripple color. We're gonna set this to 3, 3 and 6 Fs. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we're gonna need one for the advanced. So advanced button ripple color. And this is going to be 1A followed by 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And we're going to close this out. Now let's create the background for our buttons. So we're going to go into our resources
And we're gonna add a new folder, and we're gonna name this drawable. And we're gonna add a new file. So we're gonna make one for our normal buttons and then for our advanced buttons. So we're gonna create a XML file, and we're gonna call this button underscore background. And we're gonna enter in ripple. So it's gonna be a ripple effect whenever this button is clicked. So we're gonna put our Android tag, XML NS Android tag. And it's gonna be HTTP schemas .android.com/apk/res/android. And we're gonna set the color. So this is gonna be Android color / button underscore ripple underscore color. So we're gonna close that out. So now we're gonna create our advanced button background. We're just gonna open up our button background, Control A, copy this, and we're gonna paste it here. We're gonna change this to advanced. And that's pretty much it for our buttons. So before we create our button layouts, a lot of code is going to be duplicate. So it's going to be easier for us to create a style and just reference that style in the button. So let's open up our styles.xml, which is in our values folder inside resources. So we're going to add a style, and we're going to name it calculator button style. And we're going to set its parent to widget material light button borderless inside the styles folder within Android. So widget.material.light.button.borderless. And we're just going to close this out. And so each attribute of this button, we're going to have to set it as an item. So we're going to just add item name and name the name of the item that we're referencing. So we're going to use Android to reference the layout underscore width. And we're going to set that to wrap content. We don't need quotation marks for this. I'm just going to copy this and paste it for the height. And we're also going to set the gravity. And center that. And we're going to set the text color. And we're going to reference that from our colors.xml file. So it should be button underscore text color. And we're going to set the background. And we're going to reference our drawables.
And this is button underscore background. And we're gonna set text all caps to false. And we're gonna set the font family. And this is gonna be sans serif light. And we're gonna set include font padding to false. And that's it for our calculator button style. And now it's time to create our advanced button style. All right, so now that we completed our calculator button style, now we're gonna create our advanced calculator button style. And it's just gonna use our calculator button style as a parent, and we're gonna override the items that we need to be different. Style, copy this, paste this, add advanced, and parent equal and we're just going to override the text color and the background. Missing an N here. And we're just gonna put advanced here and advanced here. And I'm just gonna double check that the items that we're referencing are spelt correctly. So missing an N there, background. Now that we have our style created, let's create our layout for our buttons. So we're gonna just go into layout. We're gonna add a new file, Android layout. And I'm gonna call this numeric button. We're just gonna open up source, and we're gonna change this to button, and we're gonna remove this. We're gonna add the style. This is gonna be add style, calculator button style, and we're gonna set the size of these buttons, the text size, and this is equal to 32 dp. And now let's create our operator button. So we're going to open up the numeric button and copy the text. And we're going to set the text size to 23 dp. And now let's create our advanced button layout. And I'm just going to paste from what we already have on our clipboard, and I'm just going to add advanced, and I'm going to set this to 18 dp.